Barbaric justice, Iran's shocking rise in amputations under Islamic law.
Oops.
Whoops, I messed up.
There we go.
Iran's escalating use of amputations as punishment for theft under Islamic law has drawn fierce international condemnation, with human rights advocates labeling the practice as inhumane, cruel, and degrading. Despite global pressure, the Iranian regime has reportedly carried out at least 129 amputations since 2000, and the actual numbers are believed to be much higher due to state efforts to suppress publicity. Defending the practice, Iran's judiciary head, Gholamhossein Mohseni Ejei, stated, quote, if theft is proven under conditions set by Islam, the thief's fingers must be amputated. This is a ruling from God. Critics argue these punishments violate Iran's commitment under international human rights treaties. I mean, obviously, including International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which prohibits inhumane or degrading treatment. Mahmood, Amiry, Moghadam of Iran Human Rights called for global accountability, emphasizing that such actions constitute a serious violation of the conventions that the Islamic Republic of Iran has signed and pledged to uphold. So I wanted to cover this partially to highlight that this is something that is increasing and escalating. And particularly because there have been several amputations that have happened very recently. And then, Armin, I would like you to explain, like, what is the system of thought for this within Islam? Because I don't know. I think a lot of, especially because we've had so many new subscribers to the channel, like, I don't know how many people know that this actually happens in Iran still. So, for example, on October 13th, the state affiliated Iran Daily newspaper reported that 8 theft suspects had been indicted and referred to the criminal court facing potential amputation sentences. Another case reported on October 29th saw the amputation of 4 fingers from 2 brothers in the Urmia prison where they were convicted of theft. Then on November 9th, Tehran-based Etemad reported that 2 suspects accused of robbing a safety deposit boxes at the National Bank were sentenced to hand amputation. There were at least 237 individuals in Iran that were sentenced to amputation between January 2000 and September 24th of 2020. With at least 129 of those sentences carried out, according to researchers. And I have a lot more that I want to say about this, but Armin, I will give you the chance to jump in first.
Well, first of all, this is actually 3 points, right? 4, actually. First of all, in Iran, they also do this disgusting thing at selling you anesthetics before the amputation. So they try to make money as it as well. So you could either go through it with pain, or you could pay for the painless version, so that they turn this into a money-making scheme as well. There's that. So another point is, as Dee mentioned in the live chat, this is actually the worst thing you could do to a thief, because the best thing you could do to people who are stealing in society is get them to a point, to a place where they could actually make money on themselves, so that they don't rely on stealing. Like, you obviously you punish them, but you also want to get them to a point where they could make money through legal ways. So somebody who has been failed by the system in a way that, especially in Iran, you could blame the system for these people having to go rob something, right? So this person is already suffering. These are people who cannot look at their children at night because they are in so much shame, because as a father they cannot provide for their children in the dying economy of Iran. And now you actually manage to take away any opportunity for them to be able to maybe one day be able to make money in the future. So they went and robbed out of desperation, out of shame, because their children, there's so many suicides in Iran by fathers because they're ashamed of their children. Because one father did this when their child was crying because they didn't have the coloring pencils that they require for their homework, and there was another father basically ended himself because he couldn't buy the bicycle that his daughter wanted. He couldn't afford it. So a lot of fathers are feeling so much shame and self-hate because in this economy they cannot provide for their children, and some people will go and steal. One person lost his fingers because he stole a sheep, okay, for stealing sheep. And now the solution of the government is cut their fingers to make sure they will never be able to provide for their family. So that's, and then the next point is, nobody in Iran who steals a lot of money gets their hands cut.
Yeah,
Only poor
systematic
people.
corruption.
Yeah, no, even people who go to prison for stealing large sums of money, like corporate money, corporate theft, they never get their fingers cut off. Only the people who steal sheep or small money, only poor people in Iran get their fingers cut. People who are stealing billions and billions, even though they're stealing more, they get to keep their fingers for some odd reasons. Only people who steal small sums of money, they get their hands cut off. And also, I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows that this is completely in accordance. That where this comes from is from the Quran. This is not even Hadith. This is one of most Islamic laws comes from the Hadith, but some of them come directly from the Quran. Few of them come directly from the Quran, and this is one of them that comes directly from the Quran. This is Quran chapter 5, verse 38. You could just read it. It says, "The thief, as for the thief, the male and the female amputate their hands in recompense for what they earned, or i.e., committed, as determined punishment from Allah, and Allah is exalted in might and wise." Which is one of the dumbest. Like anybody who understands how you recover society from crime, anybody who has studied this, anybody who has any form of knowledge, like based on the evidence that we have, knows that this is the worst thing you could do. One of the worst thing you could do to basically keep a economically crippled society remain crippled, remain paralyzed, instead of turning people who are making society suffer, like that are harming society, instead of changing them to somebody that is contributing to society, you make sure that they maintain, that they remain a cause to the society. This is the worst solution to this problem. This is insane.
I
But yeah,
mean, this
go
is the
on.
kind of situation that I like to emphasize to people. We, a few years ago, covered the story of an amputation that happened to a man who was accused of some, very relatively petty theft, especially in comparison to the systematic corruption of the IRGC. Um, and oh my God, I can't even believe this. Not only do they extort people basically by saying, "Oh, if you pay extra, we will give you anesthetics," right? While we force you to undergo this torture. This is torture. Um, Not only will you can pay extra to get that service, like what is this, an a la carte menu? But they actually told these guys who were getting their fingers amputated that if they paid extra, they would allow them to keep their fingers so that they could be sewn back on. This I'm not making this up.
That is actually the correct version of the news that I said, because I was looking this up to see what you have to pay for, and you have the correct version of the news. So you're more correct than I am. So go on. Sorry. So I was looking to see if I was correct, but what you said is the correct version. But yeah,
Yeah, so imagine that not only is this occurring in a supposed medical environment? Because it is doctors that do this to people, a twisted interpretation of the medical environment. A lot of these men get life threateningly sick with infection when this happens. And then they're offered that if you pay extra, they'll like put your fingers on ice and then try to sew them back on and reattach them afterwards. And you might be like, well, how is that allowed? Blah, blah, blah. It's because the punishment was exacted, right? The amputation did occur as the punishment. Now they're like, oh, well, if you pay extra, we'll put it back on. And then you like get the best of both worlds. Am I right? You're punished and then you get to keep it. It's so freaking sick and twisted. And this is why I am still to this day furious to my core that we as a society, that our governments, that our diplomats engage with the Islamic Republic as if they are a normal state. The Islamic Republic is not an abnormal state. The Islamic Republic is an abnormal state involved in the medieval punishment of its civilians. That's the only way that I can describe it. I don't know why we believe they're saber rattling. I don't know why we play into the rhetorical games they play about culture or whatever, whatever. Like, this is just straight up medieval 7th century shit. And we just decide to engage with this government as if this is like any other country. It still blows my mind to this day. Um so
So I
go ahead.
So I found it. In some instances, authorities have offered prisoners to the option to pay for additional services related to the amputation process. For example, before amputating the fingers of Sayed Barat Hosseini, officials informed him that he could pay to have his fingers frozen and then surgically reattached. So yeah, they're making money out of him. Due to financial constraints, he was unable to afford this option and subsequently underwent the amputation without anesthesia. Oh, so I was correct as well. Without anesthesia. So there's both services. So we were both correct. So there are multiple. So you have a package. You could like, would you like the package where you get your fingers back? Would you like the package where you get anesthetic? So yeah, so I was correct as well. If you want to not feel the pain, you have to pay extra. After the procedures, he experienced severe pain, blood loss, and infection, and was held in isolation without adequate medical care. Okay, so that's the actual detail. I went and found it. That's crazy. Like, we're being
I mean,
barbaric. We might as well make some money off of it. But go on.
no, this is literally like we have to talk about this because we can't make this stuff up. You know what I mean? Like, I need people to understand the level of just like open barbarity that we're talking about here. As a matter of state. As a matter of the state conducting itself. Um so there was one video that D found that we could show, and it is actually a Islamic Republic official talking about these punishments within the context of how to treat protesters in 2019. So the context of this is basically this guy is inciting authorities to use the Quran to justify um the treatment of civilian protesters in the mass atrocity known as Bloody Aban. So, for context, basically, there was a mass protest over a spike in gas prices that occurred in November of 2019. You can look up this event. It's called Bloody November or Bloody Aban. And because of these mass protests that happened, the government literally just shut down internet, just blacked out everything in the entire nation for long time. I can't remember how long. And just straight up was committed one of the largest massacres against civilians in the history of the Islamic Republic. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's estimated that 1,500 to 3,000 people were just shot dead in the street over a series of days or weeks. I mean, Armin, am I inaccurate?
Oh, so Bloody Alban, I think the numbers, if I remember correctly, are something between 600 to 1,500 in a few days. If I remember it correctly, I think Reuters was the news agency that gave the 1,500 number, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
I
oh
need
yeah,
to
look, John
double
is
check my sources.
fantastic. John is saying Reuters puts it at 1,500.
Okay.
Thank you, John. So yeah, I do remember it correctly. Thank
You for fact checking
Okay.
me. But just for context, I mean, that is substantially worse than the civilian death toll we saw during the Massa revolution, right? And the
Yeah.
how and they blacked out the whole country on internet, right? At that
Yes,
time.
that's why we didn't see a global reaction to it, because
Yeah.
the country went dark when they were massacring people in the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um
So yeah, some infidel Avash is saying yes, 1,500 people in 4 days.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so that's the context of when this was filmed. Or I mean, we don't have to watch this whole thing, but I think like the first minute is kind of good. Do you mind playing
Okay.
it and then
The
reading the
translations
subtitles
are
or
there.
providing your own
You read this.
translation?
Can you read the subtitles, because people
Oh, sure.
prefer listening? Yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So you just play it. I leave the
Okay.
control to you.
So it's saying first the Quran says, well, they don't translate this one term, and you'll
Oh, and Yagotalo means to kill.
Okay.
And so the root verb, I know a little bit of Arabic. Correct me if I'm right, guys. This is the gatala root verb, so meaning to killing. So he will explain it. So he's saying the Quran is not saying an yuqatalo, not an yuqatalo. So an yuqatal. Oh no, he will pronounce it himself. Good. So
Okay.
یقتل یعنی چی؟ ها یک ان یقتلو زجر کش.
So the
Meaning
host
that
is asking, what
yeah.
does it mean? So the host himself is asking, what does this mean? Because the host speaks Persian, not Arabic. So he's going to translate himself. So you read it. So now he's going to translate himself. Go on.
Meaning that they should be tortured to death, not just simply killed. Oh, excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Wow.
زجر کش بشوند نه کشته بشوند. آیه اینه.
It is the exact meaning of the verse.
علمای بزرگوار ما هم که
Our ulama, meaning the scholars, Muslim scholars, are good interpreters of the Quran. So he's making it very clear where he's getting this from.
اهل تفسیرن ما را
They'd advise us if my interpretation was wrong. Okay, again, emphasizing once again the authority of what he's about to say.
نصیحت کنند اگه خلاف ترجمه میکنیم. ان یقتلو
And yogatolo should be tortured to death, crucified.
زجر کش بشوند.
I
No,
can't
he
pronounce
says
any of this.
he says that kosh b'shavan means that if you killing them, they should experience pain while dying, not just peacefully dying.
Oh
Yeah.
my god. Yasalabo. Okay, so basically another designation
Yes,
is someone who
to be
should be hanged.
crucified. Yeah. No, not
Oh,
hanged,
yusallab.
crucified. That's wrong. That's the
Here,
wrong
okay.
translation. Yasallaba means crucified. But yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you.
به دار آویخته بشوند.
Oh, he's translating it to being hanged, but yasallabo means to be crucified. So he's translating. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
او تقطع ایدیهم و ارجلهم من خلاف. بشنوید یه دونه این اجرا بشه ما
Listen up. If they've been dealt with such ways, they, the protesters, wouldn't dare to protest again. So let me make it very clear what he's saying. That civilian protesters should be openly treated with this kind of barbarity, tortured to death, killed with as much pain as possible, because if we did that, they wouldn't protest again.
دیگه نوبت بعدی ها که به پیاز خوابانده شده اونا غلط میکنن بیان به میدان چون این باید علنی باشه.
And they should be punished and executed publicly and where the crime was actually committed.
در نقطه جنایت باید اعدام بشن یا مجازات بشن. درسته؟
بله.
It's like, am I right? The host is like, vale, yes. Then it says their hands and feet should be cut off on opposite sides in the worst way possible.
خب بعد میگه با بدوضعی قطع بشود بریده بشود دست راستشون با پای چپشون خیلی حرفا
Four
یه
fingers of
دست
the right
راست بریده
hand
بشود 4 انگوش و پای چپ
and all the toes of the left foot should be cut off.
هم انگشتانش بریده بشود اینطوری رها.
Then he shall be left stigmatized in the society. Yeah, because it's not enough for you to be publicly tortured in this way. This is also made to make you a pariah in society.
بشه در اجتماع او ینفو من الارض و نفی بلد.
They should be exiled, and I personally know people who have been internally exiled in Iran for their protest as civilians, political prisoners.
تبعید بشود نه که به شیراز بفرستن که آب و هوای
But not to Shiraz, somewhere nice.
خوبی هم داره بفرستن در وسط.
It has to be someplace like in the middle of a sea. How do you exile
because
someone to
Shiraz-
the middle of the sea?
I don't know. You could drown them, I guess. But he's saying like Shiraz is famous for having a nice climate. So he's like, don't send them to Shiraz.
Mm.
دریا یه کشتی قراضم گیر میاد بالاخره.
In a rotten ship, so he spends his last days in agony. Oh my god.
اونجا زندگی کنه تا بمیره.
این میگه نفی بلد.
نفی بلد.
What is nafid balad?
It's an Arabic term for exile. So he said, like, when you exile them,
Oh.
there's a form of type of exile. Make sure you send them somewhere horrible. So after you cut off their hands and feet, so some people need to be tortured to death. Some other people you need to cut off their hands and feet, and some other people you need to exile them in middle of a ship in the middle of the sea, I guess.
This next part is interesting. And may God bless Mr. Raisi, the current head of the judiciary, who became the president, who became Cutlet when he was killed in a
God
helicopter
bless
crash.
Yeah, may God bless Mr. Raisi. Mr. Raisi was stoned by Allah with a fucking mountain.
بعدم من از دوستانی که واقعا چی بگم خدا این آقای رئیسی رو برای ما نگه دارد. من اینو خوش ندارم.
Wow. What did he said? May God keep Raisi for us. May Allah keep Raisi for us for like the amazing.
He did not.
I didn't see this.
He did not.
He did not.
He did
not.
He did not. Sorry. Okay, so let's actually just yeah. Oops.
Oh.
Cut it right there for now so we keep time for the next news. But
yes.
Hajj Avash gave this comment. He's saying, I can remember a time when I was 15 in Shiraz where they were amputating someone's hand in public and I was walking by and it was terrifying. I just want people to like imagine what that's like to know it's going on, implemented by the government within your society.
It's crazy. I know we don't have enough time to highlight all the comments at but I just want to highlight this one because this is fucking bullshit.
Oh my god!
So this is Anthony Sloan from America is saying they have a whole lot less crime thanks to their laws. America could learn from them. You fucking idiot! They have more crimes. They have more crimes with this stuff in Iran. You're an idiot. They actually have more crimes. It's almost as if the problems are deep rooted. You cannot.
Yeah, this is literally a line that Islamists use to whitewash Sharia constantly. I see it all the time.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.